Maybe we'll play Christmas music in the actual fucking video we make. Michael! Hello, everybody! Welcome to a very seasonal episode of Scuff Science Sunday. I'm your host, Pomato, and today we're gonna see what those festive dinners are doing to your insides. Why am I dressed up for the occasion? Well, look at the paper we have today. Today we're gonna be looking into the effect of having Christmas dinner with in-laws on gut microbiota composition. Now, I can't see the authors there, but there were quite a few authors on this. I don't know how serious they were about this, but apparently the science behind this is actually pretty good. So we're not getting bad science today, just kind of like funny science. I like that the keywords include gut microbiota, gut-brain axis, in-laws, stress, and Christmas. I'm assuming that the extra stress aspect of this is what's really making this pop. To anyone who doesn't know what the microbiome is, here's your little lesson. I'm sure they're going to talk about this, but the microbiota is the collection of bacteria, just prokaryotes, all sorts of little microscopic shits that are in your bowels. It's almost like a second immune system. It is the bugs that are in your gut. We all have hella bacteria in our bowels. We also have them on our skin. We have them everywhere. They are so important to us. When people say bacteria bad, that's not true. Sometimes bacteria are really good. You want a healthy mix of bacteria in your gut, because if you don't, it can make you real sick. Usually when you have conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, it often goes along with something called dysbiosis, which is an overgrowth of certain types of bacteria where they take over all the other ones. It can be linked to your mood. It could be linked to your weight, like weight gain. So it's this fun concept that it might not be the amount of food that you eat that dictates how much weight you gain. It can also be your microbiome. We don't know if the gut causes the brain problems or the brain problems cause gut problems, or it's a cycle of weird shit. But again, your gut shit, your shit in your gut, literally shit in your gut, can make you more anxious. It can make you more depressed. Or maybe depression is what causes your bowels to be off. We don't really know, but it can go both ways. And now we're gonna see it in the context of a fine Christmas dinner with people that stress you the out. So let's get started, huh? The Christmas season can have a major impact on human health. Especially increased contact with in-laws during the holiday season is an important environmental factor known to affect both physical and mental health. Oh my god, there's an actual citation for that. Emerging evidence has identified the intestinal microbiota as an important mediator for both physical and mental health. Here we performed a prospective observational study to examine the impact of contact with in-laws on the gut microbiome during the Christmas season. We conducted 16S ribosomal DNA sequencing of fecal samples collected at two separate time points, December 23rd and December 27th. So before and after, from a group of 28 healthy volunteers celebrating Christmas. Do you want to know what the most scuff thing about that? That's not a good sample size. That's still really small, but it's still better than most of the papers we've read. Hey, Jimothy, I need you to into a cup before and after Christmas. Thank you. We identified two distinct microbial marker signatures discriminating the participants that visited their in-laws versus their own family over the Christmas season. In participants visiting in-laws, there was a significant decrease in all ruminococcus species, known to be associated with psychological stress and depression. Oh, someone doesn't like their in-law. This intro looks great, by the way. This isn't a bad paper. I want to know where they got the volunteers from. I want to know if it was like people from the undergrads. Were these the undergrads? Did they ask the undergrads for their for a fun little experiment? Chat, we could do something like this. This introduction looks like so much fun. I am so excited to go through this. Christmas and feces appear to have a traditional yet mysterious connection. What makes our Christmas poo distinct from any other number twos throughout the year? If we examine poo at a more detailed level, a complex community of microorganisms is revealed, the gut microbiota. The notion is that these gut microbiota function as a metabolic organ involved in health and disease. Environmental factors such as altered diet, intoxications, i.e. alcohol, and psychological stress disturb the core composition of the gut microbiota, which is associated with pathological conditions such as obesity, metabolic syndrome, and inflammatory bowel disease. Identification of environmental factors that play a role in the modulation of the gut microbiota is of great interest, as these factors may directly and indirectly influence host health. I've only caught this version of stream twice, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this. My face cheek hurts from smiling. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. The Christmas season is a period during which multiple environmental changes are prominently present. The effect of altered diet and alcohol on the gut microbiota has already been studied extensively. However, during Christmas, individuals are exposed to another environmental factor that might have an unexpected influence on the gut microbiota composition: the mandatory visit to in-laws. In the past decade, studies have highlighted the impact of social interactions with in-law family on both physical and mental health. For example, women living together with their in-laws are up to 3 times more likely to develop coronary heart disease. Writing this down. Mirza and colleagues, moreover, found that relational problems with in-laws were associated with anxiety and depressive disorders. That's not surprising. So how the stress actually manifests into disease is something that's still being studied. Not only can psychological stress alter gut microbial composition, manipulation of the microbial signature also affects how stressors are perceived. So again, it's two-way street. So stress impacts your microbiome, but your microbiome can also impact your stress. The Christmas season serves as a natural intervention of a sudden increase in contact with in-law family members to determine whether gut health could be implicated in mediating in-law-induced health problems. We performed an observational study examining the effects of visiting in-laws during Christmas on the gut microbiota composition. We conducted a 16S ribosomal DNA sequencing of fecal samples collected at 2 separate time points, December 23rd and December 27th, from a subgroup of participants who visited their own family versus their in-laws. A multivariate statistical model was built to identify particular microbial species associated with visiting in-laws or own family members. So honestly, not bad design. You show the differences of going home to your own family versus your in-laws. Now, the question is, if your own family stresses you the fuck out, then it could be the opposite case. By the way, this is hilarious. I love this. It's so festive. I was trying to figure out what this was. Oh, it's a timeline. That's great. We're about to get into methods. This is not a long paper. I'm probably not going to go through all of this just because, like, we got one box chart. Beautiful. So the methods might be kind of questionable here, but honestly, this is kind of a meme paper anyway, so I don't really care so much. Participants were eligible for inclusion if they were of Caucasian descent, so they only had one cultural background here, so we do not know if this applies to literally anybody else. Between 20 and 40 years old, with a body mass index, BMI, between 18 and 25 kilograms per meter squared. They're trying to have the base microbiome be similar amongst the volunteers, which I guess makes sense. The total study period was 7 days, during which fecal samples were provided at 2 time points. Time point 1, December 23rd, and time point 2, December 27th. Participants were instructed to collect fresh morning fecal samples and transport these to the research centers on ice, approximately -4°C, within 6 hours after sampling. Samples were stored at -80°C until analysis was performed. Oh, that freezer's gotta suck. I didn't think about the microbiome lab poop freezer. It is like a reoccurring nightmare for people who have been been in labs for a while, that they're defrosts, because it can kill all your samples. But imagine the poop freezer defrosting. Subjects that visited their family versus their in-laws. Again, I don't think this experimental design was actually the best because they didn't have a good control here. For all the stats nerds, you can look at this and you can tell me either in chat or in the comments on YouTube if this looks good to you, because I don't know. Results. Baseline characteristics. Let's go through who they actually brought on, what they actually found, and what's up? What's up with that? So they recruited 28 healthy Caucasian participants, 14 men, 14 women. So equal men-woman ratio. Good. Of the remaining 24 participants, 16 participants visited their in-laws during Christmas, and the remaining 8 celebrated Christmas with their own family. So we already have a problem. So they have 24 people, but double the amount of people went to visit their in-laws versus went to visit their family, and these were not the same people. So this control is very bad. The relative changes in dietary macronutrients and alcohol consumption during Christmas did not significantly differ between those who visited in-laws versus their own family. family. Both groups reported a relative increase in saturated fats and proteins due to a greater consumption of animal-based products during Christmas. So they looked into macronutrients, which is good. But again, the fact that one of them has a sample size of 8 is quite bad, actually. That's relative change in macronutrients and alcohol consumption. So however they measured this, they just drank way more alcohol. Participants visiting their in-laws had a significantly higher change in fecal microbiota alpha diversity compared to participants visiting their own family during Christmas, with a p-value of less than 0.05. So there's more diversity. Some people, there was not more diversity though, but there is generally more diversity. So this could be significant. Now again, because there are so few people involved here, this is kind of all over the place. You got these people that are very much overlap, you have some groups that it was not more diverse. There was a distinct microbial signature for participants who visited their own family versus participants who visited their in-laws. This signature comprised 7 species with significantly affected relative change profiles between the two groups. Reminder that the sample size for the people visiting family was like 8. They just had more Shigella, Ruminakake, and Narrow-truncus. I've literally never heard of that before. That's fun. There was a massive increase in general in E. coli and Shigella. I'm pretty sure what this shows is like how many different bacterial species are present, right? When you visit your in-laws, you got more variety in the type of bacteria, whereas when you visit your family, you got less different types, but you have bigger changes in those those lesser types, right? The multivariate statistical model revealed 2 distinct biomarker signatures containing 7 species that are able to distinguish the participants visiting their family from participants visiting their in-laws during Christmas. So are they saying that just by looking at the bacterial signature, they can tell if they went to visit their family versus went to visit in-laws? These findings could imply that visiting in-laws during Christmas induces high stress levels, which in turn that's a massive leap, which in turn reduces the presence of Ruminococcae genus in the gut. We did not have participants report on perceived stress. What do you mean? You didn't have them report on their feelings of stress. What do you mean? They needed them to report on this because otherwise this is a massive assumption. We have no idea, because right now to me, it seems more likely this has to do with, you sharing a microbiome with your family versus not with your in-laws. So when you go to their house and you're exposed to the food of your in-laws and the drinks of your in-laws, and even the pets of your in-laws. Chat, fun fact, did you know that people with pets have different microbiomes than people that don't have pets? Let me see if I can find this graph. There are distinct microbiomes if you have a pet versus if you don't have a pet. I cannot believe they didn't measure stress. That is the scuff of this paper. The intro was amazing. I have no faults with the intro. The intro was fucking a piece of art. Small sample size. Bad control groups. Massive assumptions. Did not check for those if those assumptions were true. It's average sized. The beginning was beautiful, and honestly, the concept of this paper isn't bad. It just wasn't done particularly well. In the subgroup visiting their own family, we also saw a distinct decrease in 2 different Ruminococcae genes. Potentially not only participants visiting their in-laws, but also participants visiting their families experienced increased psychological stress during Christmas. Holy shit, you don't say. This study was limited by its observational nature. Participants were free of choice whether to visit family or in-laws during Christmas. This decision was not assigned by the investigators. It is possible that participants with a greater aversion towards their in-laws have used the excuse of participating in a scientific study addressing Christmas poo to not visit their in-laws during Christmas. Holy fire, Batman. Whoever was the main person that wrote this, stupendous sense of humor. That is very f***ing funny because honestly based. In addition, multiple unknown confounders might have influenced our main outcome measures. Beyond known factors like diet, gender, BMI, age, physical exercise, pets, and individual microbiome variations, there are many other yet to be identified factors that may have influenced our outcomes. Moreover, the study relied on a small group of volunteers as participants. An analysis of a greater pool of individuals would help to identify trends in microbiota changes with greater accuracy. I think they definitely knew the limitations they had, and I do think this would be a cool thing to repeat properly. Is it strange? Yeah. But I do think it's kind of fun. They definitely had a good sense of humor. Dodge your in-laws by studying shit. Literally, this study was not good. I think it asked an interesting question. I think it was funny. I think the intro was great. This timeline figure, God bless you, that is one of the funnier things I've seen in a long time. And it was to the point. They did not ramble on for 3,000 years. They also got they had like ethical approval, and they got consent from their volunteers, which is, I mean, they had to because they asked for their shit. You did your best. This is obviously not a serious paper. I cannot do a quadruple dunk on this because it's obviously not very serious. When you have lines like using the study to not visit their in-laws, and like the intro too, whoever wrote this intro, I love you. You're great. In-laws being a risk factor for microbiome changes is, again, there's some fire lines in here. Oh, also, they did thank the people who did the fecal DNA extraction. They did the poop extraction. I'm happy. They were very specifically thanked for that. That had to be really shitty.